Hello, I'm going to do a reading of the first Red Dwarf novel, Infinity Welcomes Careful Drivers. This is an excerpt I particularly like. It's where Lister's all alone and going to pieces a little bit, drinking too much and things like that. It's terrible. By the way, every time I mess up this, I'm going to take a drink. So this could get messy. Cheers. I don't know who I'm looking at here, by the way. He's not straight, but... Lister sat in the empty Copacabana Kawan... Lister sat in the empty Copacabana... Focus. Lister sat in the empty Copacabana Hawaiian cocktail bar and poured a triple whiskey into his double whiskey, then topped it up with a double whiskey. Absently sake. Go on, sorry. No. Lister sat in the empty Copacabana Hawaiian cocktail bar and poured a triple whiskey into his double whiskey, then topped it up with a whiskey. Absently, he lit the filter end of a cigarette and tried to assimilate all the information Holly had thrown at him. Everybody was dead. Everybody. He'd been in stasis 3 million years. 3 million years. Since one drunken night outside the Mary Lloyd of Regent Street, London, every step he'd taken had led him further and further from home. First it was Mimas, then Miranda, and now he was 3 million years away. 3 million years out into deep space. Further than any human being had ever been before. And he was totally alone. The enormity of all this was slowly beginning to sink in when Holly dropped his final bombshell, the one about the human race being extinct. What do you mean, extinct? Well, 3 million years is a very good age for a species. I mean, your average genus only survives a couple of 100,000 years max. And that's with a clean living species like dinosaurs. Dinosaurs didn't totally screw up the environment. They just went around quietly eating things. And even then they didn't get to clock up the big 1 mil. So the chances of the human race making it to the big 3000000 are practically non-existent. So I'm afraid you have to face up to the very real possibility that your species is dead. Much to his surprise, Lister let out a sob. Well, you're very close. Holly tilted his head sympathetically. Well, yeah, I suppose you must have been, really. That was a bit of an odd thing to say, he thought. Lister took out his shirt tail and blew his nose. So I'm the last human being alive. Yeah. You never think it's going to happen to your species, do you? It's always something that happens to somebody else's. Lister spent the next few days going to pieces. There seemed little point in getting dressed, and so he wandered around naked, swigging from an empty bottle of whiskey. Empty bottle of whiskey? No. I'm going from there. All right? He slept wherever he fell, a painful, dreamless sleep. He hardly ate, and drank a small lockworth of whiskey. He didn't even like whiskey, but beer was too cumbersome to carry around in sufficient quantities to achieve oblivion. He lost a stone in weight, and started shouting at people who weren't there. Every evening at around 5 p.m, he'd stagger stark naked into the drive-room, and, waving his whiskey bottle dangerously in the air, he'd belch incoherent obscenities at Holly's whose vajayage. From the top. Every evening at around 5 p.m, he'd stagger stark naked into the drive-room, and, waving his whiskey... For fuck's sake! This is ridiculous. I can read. I learnt about 33 years ago, before I was born. That was in another life, because I'm 25, obviously. Let's have it. Right. Every evening at around 5 p.m, he'd stagger stark naked into the drive room, and waving his whiskey bottle dangerously in the air, he'd belch incoherent obscenities at Holly's huge visage on the gigantic monitor screen. Sometimes Lister imagined he'd heard his phone ring, and he'd rushed to pick it up. On the evening of the 5th day, as he staggered through the Red Dwarf shopping mall, toasting invisible crowds, he keeled over and blacked out. When he woke up in the medical unit, a man with an H on his forehead was looking down at him with undisguised contempt. Well, I thought that went well. Flawless.